hotel downtown Dubai. We are going to talk water this week, and it's just fortuitous that you've had an incident with someone who called you in desperation. You've got the videos. You personally went and sorted them.
Don't get any ideas, Dubai. I'm retired-ish.
I had an incident, so I thought, you know what? Let's talk water and pumps, tubes, pipes, seals, faucets, the whole gambit, because these things affect everyone. I thought this is gonna be a great way to start the day. So here we go. It's time for the We Will Fix It Essential Maintenance Podcast with Colin Thoms. That's how we start.
I like it. I'm even more happy that we're actually inside the Rove podcast studio.
So the story is, of course, we arrive here at a crazy morning hour, and the gentleman who makes sure this thing's all up and running and working, I got here before he did.
I think he's caught in the crazy Dubai traffic
I think
of today.
so too. You just never know. I mean,
Yeah,
so we're coming to you from Dubai. You're listening to us around the world. Thank you very much, Joey Woo Woo and Co.
Joey Woo Woo.
Also known, AKA Joey Chernobyl, but that's a whole other story. So
that sounds like a huge story.
But no, we got here. And weird weather. So globally, my son texted me this morning. He says, yeah, I went to bed. It was supposed to be a perfectly clear day, beautiful in the morning. He gets up, it's raining. And he's going, what? That wasn't even in the forecast. And then I woke up this morning, like you and I, we both walk our pets.
Yes.
And it was a humid one in Murdiff. I don't know what it was like in the ranches.
It wasn't as bad this morning as it was last night. Last night was awful. And I went out, I mentioned we'd had a few sherbets for Dylan's birthday. So I went out at about 8:45 last night, I think, which is late for me. And it was awful, really bad as it's been in a long time. You know, I was literally dripping by the time we got home.
For me, that was this morning. It was just brutal.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm happy
that time of year.
Yeah, it's the cycles, right? It's the cycles.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to talk water. That's where we're going today.
I'm glad we're talking water, because in my little nerdy world of maintenance, actually water and plumbing is my favourite bit.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. Because it's the concept of flow I really like, which can either be electrical, water really as a concept, but more than that, it requires some really deep thought, I find, because a lot of it is often underground. So you're trying to physically piece all the information that you've got together to come up with something that's logical. And to fix it. And there's nothing worse than digging up somebody's driveway to then go, actually, the problem's not here. Can you imagine that moment?
Oh, yes.
That's a bit scary. Yeah. So it's one of those where you've just got to join a lot of dots together, and a lot of it is experience, which is odd. So the number of times that I've turned up over the years to properties, and you've gone, okay, if you looked at this for a minute and a half, you'd have done what you've actually done. If you'd have just spent 5 minutes staring at this, and this is something that I used to talk quite a lot to our technicians about, which is don't just jump in with plumbing. Look at it, see if you can, it's almost like a sixth sense that you have with these kind of things, which is what initially looks like the issue is probably 50% of the time is not actually the core cause. So you really need to work on more and more of the elements to really come with the right solution.
I want to jump in on the first one, which is we live in an environment where we've got bidets in our homes. We've got a lot of hoses that are running from things. So we've got the bidets, we've got bum showers is what some people call them, but they're literally like a little hand shower on the side of the toilet to, if you're using the bidet, you use it.
Yes.
And these things,
they call it douching.
Douching.
I've never got the hang of it.
I suppose they do. I suppose they do call it that.
I think that's what it was officially termed out.
And these things are all hooked into the main water line of your home, and they run under pressure.
Well, that's the difference here compared to around the majority of the rest of the world. Certainly in the UK, you've got a mains pressure which is higher than it is here, because here you run about half to 1 bar. But at the same time, there is no pump.
Right.
And your pump is running at about 4.5, maybe even 5 bar, that kind of area when it's running. And obviously at static pressure, it's normally around 3 bar. That's enough to create a fountain at any point wherever you are. And as a result, that has real implications. So the main implications are that if you have any part of your plumbing system that is not at 100%, just starting to weaken off.
And where does it typically start to weaken off?
Oh, see, there isn't a typical, which is the odd thing. So you do have the standard weakness areas, which is water heaters is the obvious one. And that's the one that everybody that's been in Dubai for a couple of years has definitely replaced at least one, if not more. They last between 3 and 5 years, and they have 2 locations that they rust from, which is either at the end seal, the weld seal, or alternatively around the hot water connection.
Right.
That's the standard thing.
Anytime, and I always say, because you can, hot water tanks, in fact, my mother had a brand new hot water tank in Canada. It went. So this is, which is really odd because it was pretty new, but it was warranted. But this is an issue that we get here as well because we've got room-specific hot water tanks, which is very European, I suspect.
Well, it's not in the UK. No, not at all. In the UK, you have one big lagged copper tank is standard.
And that's kind of what we have in Canada. We have a big tank. I wouldn't say it's copper, but it's usually glass line kind of thing. But it's a giant tank down in the basement, and away you go.
Yeah, no, ours are always copper, and still are. And then insulated as well, so they would be.
So maybe it's
like
Italy, because a lot of these things come from Italy.
France is as well. Thinking about it,
France
and yes,
Italy.
you're right about Italy, which is where
all these tanks seem to come from there.
Well, the odd thing is, so Ariston, who are the main supplier here, have 2 versions. They've got the one that comes from Italy and the one that comes from China. Okay, the one from Italy obviously is about 40% more expensive. There's no difference in longevity. We've tested it a lot.
Doesn't matter.
No, it makes absolutely no difference. And we've had before now customers going, no, I want the Italian one. Okay, no problem, you can have the Italian one, but we offer the same warranty on both. What? You offer the same warranty on both? Yeah, because they're both going to last you between 3 and 5 years. It doesn't make any difference. But the thing is, here, because they are by room, so for a decent sized villa, you may well have 7 of these things.
Yeah, for sure.
So as a result, they're made at a price point to make it economic, which means that they're mild steel with a glass lining, and the glass lining isn't all that great because, they're coming at a price point, which is why they fail. You can get stainless steel versions, but they are like a factor of 7, I think, the difference in price. So it just doesn't make sense for a lot of people to have 7 of those at a factor of 7. You're in quite a large price point there.
Lift up your roof tiles, take a look. If you see anything that looks like rust on a seam, that thing's done.
Yeah, false ceilings. Exactly. That's it, James. If you see any signs whatsoever of rust on the outside of a water heater, it is done. Get rid of it now. Don't pass go.
Yeah. You know, the other place, and this goes back to the douche, this goes back to the bidet, this goes back to all these high pressure hoses that go to our toilets and our sinks and all that. When you open up and we're gonna circle back here, but when you open up and you look at your hot water heater, not only you're looking around it to see, do I have any rust, do I have any apparent water drippage, but also the hoses are a place that can go, and that seems to be around the house. Yes. Generally speaking.
Here's a classic. There are 3 different quality levels that we as suppliers can take for the hoses. And these are the connection hoses between, well, actually a lot of things, but anyway, we'll talk about water heaters. So the water heater to the main pipe, okay? So there's 3 different qualities of this. There is only one quality I'm going to touch. Now, even our quality, which is the best quality going, there are fakes out there.
Oh no!
Yeah, I know, but they even have the what's those the quality marks that?
Oh sure, the
ones that are kind of holograms.
Holograms. There we go.
Yeah, they've even hologrammed them now.
Really?
Yeah, and it's got to the stage where we were happy buying from the market for years, and then we got a Duff batch. And I was suddenly like, oh my Lord. So we then had to trace through all of those jobs that we'd done, send people back.
Really?
Yes. And now we literally are buying direct. And it used to be fine in the market, but now we buy direct from the importer.
Wow.
Just to make sure that we've got everything's okay.
What's the price difference between the lowest model and the highest model?
Factor of 3.
Okay.
And a customer is not going to ever know that or appreciate that. Until that moment when it fails, which is where the issue lies.
And where do they tend to fail?
Actually, right on the joint.
Yeah.
So just behind the crimp is the normal location. But the issue with this is, if you imagine, we have exactly the same on toilet hoses as well. And the number of arguments that I've had with both customers and our own purchasing department, which is, we only fit grow hair.
Okay.
I'm not fitting anything else. If you like the look of another one, off your trot. I am not fitting anything other than grow hair.
And why?
Because they just don't fail, or when they do fail, it's normally a progressive failure.
Yeah.
8, 9 years. In fact, that's not true. I've had one that's failed in since 2008. There you go.
Spectacular.
Yeah, in terms of the ones that we've fitted. Yeah. Now, as a result, if I fit something else at high pressure at 5 bar, if that fails and it's within a year, I'm liable.
Yeah.
So on that basis, if I flooded somebody's apartment, and if you imagine this is the nightmare. Imagine an apartment block where you have 1 or 2 people living above or below each other who are both out of the country at the same time. Oh. You can be on for, let's say, 3 apartments there,
yeah.
which is just horrific to think about. Yeah. And of course we are insured, but it's still just an absolute cluster in that scenario.
Tell me about the story. And you were playing some video, but this was before we came on and started doing this. You're showing me some video of a situation. This is a pretty common situation. This is one Dan had. This is a situation I had.
Yep.
Dan was home. I was home.
Yes.
But these people weren't home.
Now the one that I showed you looks horrific. I mean, when I showed you were quite aghast, weren't you?
Yeah.
I see that probably every couple of months.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So give us the background. Give us the background of what's going on, because this is a classic hose failure.
Yes, so this was he wasn't actually even a customer. He was in the Springs, this gentleman, and through one reason or another, he's had to stay in the UK now for probably about 3 or 4 months.
All right.
He got told by a neighbour who was checking in on the property, you've had a horrific water failure here. And on Friday morning, he sent me a message. He's one of the British dads group that we talk about a lot. He sent me a message to say, right, now what am I going to do? Type of scenario. And what the video showed was, the first video that I received was of a living room in the Springs with water coming through the ceiling, but actually not the main slab locations, it was coming through the ducts. So what that initially tells me, if it's coming through the ducts, I know that the issue is unlikely to be related to the downstairs, because...
Which is a good thing.
Actually, no, I would have preferred it to have been downstairs, because then you've literally got a single isolation point to be able to work with. As it turns out, so from that video, I'm suddenly thinking, okay, what happened upstairs, and where's it coming? Where's it coming through? Solid slab on the floor there, so therefore I know for a fact that it is, the main area is all right, but we've got something else that's going on, so it's come through the riser that's of the property. Then the next video was of the bathroom upstairs, and what had happened was a simple hose failure. So the hose itself was okay, but the physical sprayer on the end, the bum gun sprayer, had failed. And that was it. So nothing more than that.
That's probably, if you go the cheapest route for those things, you're looking at 5 dirhams, a couple dollars, quid. If you go a little bit higher in the price and get something a little bit better.
Ours is 70.
There you go.
70 dirhams. And it sounds expensive when you've got an option for 5, doesn't it?
It does.
When you're making your purchase decision, there's a reason.
Yeah. If you're not home and that thing fails, you're gone for.
But the interesting thing, and the really sad thing actually for this guy, was he turned all the other ones off.
Oh no.
No, he'd missed this bathroom, which is just devastating for him. Okay, so then let's talk about the fallout from that.
Yeah. So this was second floor, the washroom, that little sprayer thing is broken, and it is just, water is leaking out of it. Enough that there was, with the video, when the person who went and walked around, it was over her feet if she got in there, because you had the sill in the washroom. And of course it had risen above the sill, and now it was flowing down into the downstairs floor, where it was hardwood, which is done for, and the ceiling done for, and we're talking thousands in repairs.
Tens of thousands to repair it.
Plus the mold.
Well, there's the interesting thing. So we were talking quite a lot about the mold. So, and let's start off with my role in this. So normally we have to, if you imagine the number of people that reach out, it's quite dramatic for me in terms of what I receive on a regular basis. And you know what? We just can't make exceptions on a regular basis. And the simple reason is we have annual customers that pay us to be there 24/7, 365, and they have paid for that privilege. So as a result, everybody else works on the ad hoc model, which is when you need us, you call us. Well, that comes with the downside. And the downside is, if it is out of hours, or alternatively, if we are booked solid, then we're not able to come in that way.
Right.
So it's a different service that we offer with WeWillFixIt compared to essential maintenance, which is there to solve everybody's needs and in an emergency environment. So in that situation, actually, I needed to go to the springs anyway, and I was slightly out of practice. I hadn't done one of these in a while, so I thought, you know what, it'll be good for my own skills just to get brushed up and to carry on with it. So I decided I would just head off myself at the same time, not in any WeWillFixIt garb and not charging him in any shape or form.
Just doing a courtesy.
Yeah, just doing a courtesy. And so off I went, and I actually didn't even need to go inside the property. I could isolate everything from outside, and I always multi-isolate, which is, there's various different ways that you could do it in that situation. You could just turn off the DEWA valve, but again, he may well have a tank that's underground.
That's his water company, the main feed.
Yes, exactly. Or alternatively, the normal way would be just to depower the pump, take the electric off the pump itself. Well, yeah, that might work, but if he had a leak in the DEWA system, or alternatively a switch to the DEWA system, that would still happen as well. So instead what I did was I did everything. So I isolated the DEWA supply to the house. There was nobody living there, so that wasn't a problem. And then equally turned physically off the electrics on the pump, and then I isolated the output from the pump. So that way, in fact, it's a triple isolation.
You noticed some interesting things in that process. One, that there was some valves that were not necessarily ideal for that situation, and two, that some of those valves hadn't been turned in quite a while, so they were sticky, they were hard. The valves probably need to be inspected themselves at this point.
Hey, this is another point that we've missed off, which is the unique environment in the UAE. Our water is desalinated, and the quality of our water is excellent, which is something I didn't realise. But it really is. If you look at world standards, we're right up there in terms of the quality of our water.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the salt levels that are in it mean that it does corrode, and it corrodes more frequently or quicker rather than in many other parts of the world. How this affects gate valves now, a gate valve.
There's the other piece with the gate valves. Our water for a part of the year is hitting 50 degrees.
Yes, exactly. It's red hot.
And when you look at a lot of these valves and meters and things operating at that hot water level, over an extended period of time, helps to diminish their lifespan.
Yeah. When you get to know kind of quite a lot about plumbing, and in the early years, because we were kind of lacking actually in plumbers, it's the most difficult role to recruit for. My knowledge went through the roof because it had to, no other reason really. But what we worked out was that the gate valves, and these are the valves with the red handle on the top that you turn round and round and round. Actually, it's normally about 6 full turns from fully open to fully closed. 95% of the gate valves that are used in Dubai are designed for non-pressurized systems, and they're working on pressurized systems.
So you're already setting yourself up.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, no, it gets worse. The majority of those gate valves, because they've been cost reduced, actually have a steel central shaft that is then mixing with the water that we've got running through, which has heat, and secondly, a relatively high salt level.
And the word rust comes to one's mind.
There we go. Okay, so therefore it's rusty. That is what is creating that initial really tough, and literally it's all of my force to get this valve going. And obviously over the years you learn what the brake force is and try and get it exactly on the limit so that you're not going to break it, but you might break it in the process, but there's no way around it. So that's and then the
So if you break it, what do? Then you got to replace the whole thing.
Replace it. It's got to cut it out, put a new one in, and away you go.
And what do you typically? Are you replacing it with something that's still using that steel component? Or?
We don't. I mean, we got rid of that years ago from the knowledge that we gained back in probably 2009 now.
And what are you putting in instead?
I'm putting in a top quality. It's another gate valve, but it's from a different manufacturer that very few people use here. I think I'm his biggest customer. and that will take 25 bar, and they're operating at 5 generally on the whole. And as well as that, it's solid brass all the way through.
There we
so
go.
all of it. So that's as good as you can get.
So salt corrosion doesn't really happen with the brass?
No, it still does. It still does, but it's not terminal.
Okay.
And it will last longer before it locks. And when it does lock, you can put as much force into it as you want.
When it locks,
you're
it
getting
locks.
back. No, you'll get it back in effect.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, and you won't damage it in the process.
Oh, nice.
So you can literally, if you need to put any kind of lever mechanism on it, you can.
Okay.
So that's why we really like them.
So again, there's when someone's looking at these things, they might be tempted to go, oh, I'm going to go for the bargain because, I'm going to save a little bit.
No, with this situation, they're not going to know any better.
Right.
And that's the thing that really gets through to me about maintenance here in Dubai, which is you're not going to get a maintenance company that's going to say to you, you know what, the reason our prices are higher is because we use the components that nobody else uses, which means that further down the line, you're not going to have nobody's actually interested.
Right.
Instead, what our job is as a company is to protect our customers from the worst cases that we possibly can. Now, we just have to accept the fact that other people are going to go, we can do it cheaper than these guys. Yeah. And nobody is going to question why.
Right.
And why would they? It's not the kind of thing that you would have enough knowledge about to know to question. So we just kind of accept that from that side of things. But then the other bodge that we had in that video, which you spotted, total respect to you, James, was that they'd used on the output from the pump, they'd used a plastic swimming pool lever valve.
Right.
Which is...
I was looking at that going, I mean, my first thought was, are they using this pump also to run their swimming pool?
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? But it's just, all it is plastic components. And
I get the thinking though, like I get how someone who was putting that in would put a swimming pool pump thing because they're going to go, swimming pool pumps will operate on pressure, and if it operates on pressure, why wouldn't a house system work the same way?
Yeah, treated water.
Yeah.
From a swimming pool. So you imagine you're working with a different level of water.
Yeah.
Secondly, they're still not the best, to be fair, but it is just the standard that's used on swimming pools, and as a result, no, it just doesn't. It will fail, and it will fail when you need it. And actually, talking of that, I've got 3 of those valves that have failed in mine. I'm desperately trying to get some time with my plumber to be able to replace them all. But and that's normal because they're just not of the same quality. So so that property was like an absolute disaster area. Now, mold was the next thing that we talked about on that job.
I didn't see any mold. I just saw
there
water
isn't.
down.
There isn't. And
did he have the AC on still?
Well, this is where the discussion went. So he was more paranoid about mold than anything else. Now, the issue that I had was there was water in his ducting, and as a result, I didn't want him to initially put the AC on. I wanted him to vent everything.
Right.
And additionally, knowing the Springs properties kind of as I do, I was pretty confident that there wasn't water in the indoor units of the AC. And secondly, that there are extractors in each of the bedrooms, in each of the bathrooms rather, that if you turn those on and one in the kitchen, it would create enough airflow in that initial period that mold shouldn't be an issue. However, I wanted him then to get somebody to go in 48 hours later to turn on the ACs to act as a dehumidifier to then get the dry out process going and quickly. So we're obviously in still the summer period now, so as a result, it will dry out pretty quickly. But that, assuming that you get the circulation, then the mold should not be an issue in that scenario. But you've got to get it bone dry and bone dry quickly. What actually happened was his landlord sent somebody round who then turned on all the ACs.
Oh no!
And they didn't trip. So he then said, does that mean I need to go back and turn them off? I'm like, well, if they haven't tripped, just don't mess with it. Stay out the house for a while because you've now got the maximum amount of dehumidifying. Wasn't safe, but he's done it anyway. And at this stage, I'll let the whole place dry out for a week and see where you are. But like you say, he had hardwood floors down, and that's just devastating.
They were covered. It was a swimming pool.
Oh yeah, it was downstairs and upstairs, not matter. But then also the other interesting one is tiles here. When you put water on tiles, you'd have thought they're designed for it, wouldn't you?
No.
Well, some are and some aren't, which is really bizarre. But quite often they will lift in that situation, which is just, you're like, goodness sake, it's designed for a swimming pool. Why the heck would that happen?
Depends on the grouting, depends on
Yes,
the specific tile, depends on the glazing on top. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a real, another separate area, really. So we're going to have to wait and see. But now I feel like we've done everything right, that we've minimised considering the situation that we had. So, you know, he is where he is.
Is he back in town?
No, he's not back till October.
So he's got someone watching this unfold from afar.
Yeah, on video. There's nothing more scary than that, is there? But, you know, in that situation, we try to help where we can.
When we look at this, and we look at this situation, what's the message to any homeowner? What should we be doing when it comes to, A, if we're going away with our water, and B, just with general preparedness to avoid these kind of disasters? And it seems like he was 95% there.
I'll give him 60.
60%. 60. I was being charitable.
No, I'll give him 60% there, to be fair. Okay. The reason being, so the start point is, if you haven't got somebody staying at your property, turn off the pump, first of all, depressurize the system, and ideally isolate it at DEWA as well. Okay. And that way, it doesn't matter which stage in the process that you have a leak, you've got it as worked out as you possibly can do. If you depressurize the system and do that both hot and cold, although in effect if you do cold, it should cover hot, then it basically means that there isn't that pressure on the pipes anymore. Right. And
you're not really going to get a leak.
You're not really going to get a leak, exactly. Or if you do, it's going to be a drip.
Yeah, and it's only going to go until you've depressurized, so it's only going to go until it's taken all the water out of the pipe, and then you're done.
So you've minimised your risk. So that's that side of things. The other one, which is, we're not going to get into because we've done it before and we'll probably do it again at some point, is the discussion over ACs. Yeah. And oh my Lord, even our own team, our marketing team, came to me with exactly the wrong answer for do I leave the ACs on and how to deal with it. I was like, where do you find this garbage? It's absolutely obvious what you do, which is leave your ACs off unless you've got plants, without a doubt. Leave all your doors open, and you know what? To aid airflow, shove on an extractor. And you only probably need one in a house to create enough airflow, as long as you've got every door open, except your front door. That won't be the best for you.
Yeah, there we go. So 60%, he's learned a lesson.
Yeah, which is awful. I mean, it's terrible when this happens. Yeah. You know, I don't mind charging for work that is just needs to be done. But when somebody's had a horrific one like that, it feels awful somehow that somebody needs to pay for that.
So what's going on at your place? We haven't talked about you got the pool stuff.
Yeah, I've got loads that I need to get done.
Oh no.
Yeah,
no. Is the shed all done, by the way?
So where I got to.
Okay, hold on a second. If you've been listening to this podcast, which obviously you have because you're listening right now, and you go back, you will know that there has been first there was the move that took up.
That took a
months,
long time. Yeah.
And then there was the building of the shed and all the different stages, and it has been a slow but thorough process. And
7 months, I think.
Father-in-law was involved.
He was brilliant.
There was also a stage in there where Natalie, bless her, comes out and takes a look and figures it's maybe a little bit too small. At which point, then you were going to finish it and sell it, and now you're going to keep it. So, but it's not quite done.
Well, it kind of is and it isn't. So the only bit I got, basically all of the roofing sheets are on. We've got the protective cover that we had to go to Ras Al Khaimah for.
Why?
Because you can't get like a felt stone roofing sheets from Dubai.
Really?
I know, isn't it weird? But then you think about it, and you go, well, who else would use them apart from on a here? Yeah. Who else would use them? And they don't. They tile.
Okay.
So it was a really odd one, but I was specific about what I was after, and thank goodness we had a spare driver one day. I didn't tell Dan. Right, off you go, rack. Go and get me this. So I've got all that on now. The one thing I haven't done is trim the edges down fully and put the final wood trims on the corners. I've got these fantastic L section wood pieces that I've treated, but I just haven't managed to get on yet. And you know what? I'm not even going to bother until it cools down a bit. And then it's literally probably about another 4 hours work to get that finished. But the idea is it's waterproof and it's sunproof. Okay. And for me, that's good enough at the moment until we get some more time and better weather.
No, I'm just, we got an audience.
Ah.
Well, that's good.
Yay.
So things are coming along.
Yes, they are. So that bit's all fine. I've got, like I said, I've got 3 valves that are dodgy on the pool pump system, which all need sorting. I've also got.
Now, are the valves on the pool pump a lot like batteries, where you're letting them go, and eventually they're going to fail, and you're going to be forced to scramble?
No, not in that way. The leaks on those, because they're actually from the valves themselves, because the valves are such poor quality.
They're leaking.
They are leaking, but they are literally at the really early drip stage, and have been for like 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
But I've got a new gentleman, English gentleman actually, who's now looking after our pool.
Nice.
And I was talking about the cavitation with him, and he's like, "Well, didn't you look at your suction lines?" I was like, "Oh, of course. All of those valves are on the suction side, not on the supply." Yeah. So on that basis, that's where my cavitation's coming from. So yeah, I need to get around to it. But the boys are really busy right now. Yeah. So it's one of those that I just need to book some time in to get done. Also, I've got a really odd one on the pump at the moment, which is going
the pool pump.
The main house pump. Which is on lower pressure scenarios. It can no longer distinguish easily between on and off. So we're getting an on-off, which is not. Well, actually, this one is not the traditional failure.
Okay.
So the traditional failure on this one is that the pressure trumpet that sits on top of the pump itself. When that fails, yeah, exactly.
There's a little diaphragm in there.
Exactly, that's the word I couldn't get to, the diaphragm.
A little geyser comes out of the little air hole on the top.
Exactly, yeah. No, haven't got that. It's just lost the ability to distinguish, and it's like every 15 or 20 seconds.
Oh, that's annoying.
The relative level. As soon as you put the garden hose, which is directly connected to that pump, on, absolutely fine. Yeah. So it's just kind of slightly frustrating at the moment, rather than majorly irritating.
So is that the pump?
That's the pressure kit.
That's the pressure kit.
Yeah.
You just need to get a new pressure kit on there.
Yeah, but again, it's not protected. I haven't had time to actually get something built to go over the top of it. Anyway, so that's that. And then I've got some just odd light failures as well, and not bulbs related. And so time to look at transformers and all that kind of stuff. So just lots of little things, and the tiles that have driven me up the wall now for a year that Natalie wouldn't let me replace. I just need to get her out the way. And you know what? When I get around to digging a big enough hole, I'll be able to do it and get my tiles sorted. Oh, gee whiz.
It's the story of everyone's home, right? At this time of year, people have been away. Yeah. They're getting back. Now school's starting. People are getting back into the work swing of things, whatever that swing is, because of our crazy environment that we're in.
Yes.
And you start realizing, okay, the things I put off, the things I'd started. All right, now I got to get back to it. And it's like it's a never-ending story.
Yes.
Because, I mean, as you've just described at your place, you got some pool issues, you got some pump issues, and you got some tile issues, you got some light issues. And the longer, you start making the checklist.
Yes.
And then inevitably, new things crop up.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I tend to find is if I try and get it done in batches, like every 3 or 4 months, just get like 3 or 4 hours at time, then I can keep everything kind of under control. But I forgot about that. Yeah, I'm going to redo the irrigation system as well, which actually was a bad install from us, which wasn't very clever. So we need to put a peripheral pipe all the way around the garden so that we're supplying more effectively further away from the pump. And it's actually kind of destroyed a few of the trees we'd already bought, which is a pain.
Oh no! Too much water. Or
no,
too
little.
Oh,
yeah, it's a bad design. My boys didn't do the best on that one, so that one goes onto a whiteboard for discussion, to say the least. But it's a big labour job to do it, so I will probably get the labour elsewhere to dig the hole. So my boys, I have the minimum amount of time because we are really busy right now. Yeah. So trying to take time away from paying jobs is not something we like to do.
Irrigation is an interesting thing because, in a sense, while it involves water and while it involves plumbing, it is somewhat different.
It is. It's very different
than in-house.
Yeah. Again, see, it's the solenoid valves that are involved. So if you imagine when you turn on the irrigation, for those people that have got a garden with irrigation, generally speaking, you have different sectors, they call them, which go off, and each one of those is just a solenoid valve, and all of a solenoid valve is an electric open and close mechanism, so water starts and stops. And the reason for those is for the number of spout heads that you need within to water all of your garden, if you did all of that at one time, you need one heck of a pump to create the pressure needed for it to work. So instead, you have these sectors so that it only has 10 maybe spray heads to do at one time, so you get the spray effect coming through your lawn. So so the scenario with that was that my boys decided that because I only needed dripper lines, they could just run 3 dripper sectors round the garden. They were wrong. You can't do that. You need to do it properly with a big 1-inch line, and that's exactly what we will do this time around.
I think I've noticed a lot of people doing some work on their irrigation systems, because in the morning jog with the dog, I'm seeing lots of irrigation being replaced.
Yeah, well, the issue is that the failures are quite dramatic when they happen.
Yeah.
We've got one that was is just past our office on the way home. It's actually coming onto the 311, so it's a really major highway.
Yeah, and there's a geyser?
Oh man, it's huge, absolutely enormous. You know, it's like driving through a fountain when it happens, and highly entertaining. I've got to say, I quite enjoy it. But it's been there now for 2 weeks.
How is that possible?
I know, it's nuts, isn't it? Yeah. But, you know, it's amazing seeing how different nationalities deal with it. There's people that are driving through it literally at like 5 kilometres an hour. And this is a main road that's designed for like 80 or 90. And it is very bizarre.